I'm Jenny Williamson.
And I'm Jen McMenemy.
And we're from Ancient History Fangirl. So, you're about to tune into Queen's podcast, and we're here to just give you a heads up. These two swear. Like a lot.
Like a whole lot? So, if that's not your thing, this may not be the podcast for you. But if it is your thing, you're in the right place.
And if you like your history tipsy and interspersed with F-bombs, you might like us too. Check out Ancient History Fangirl wherever you get your podcasts.
Enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Katie.
And this is Nathan.
And you're listening to Queens, the podcast about badass women in history.
Boom shakalaka.
Boom shakalaka laka, boom shakalaka laka. First episode of 2018.
Hooty hoo.
I feel like it's been a really long time since we've recorded.
Yeah, it has, because someone was in Europe.
Oh yeah, just in my gallivanting around Europe. Sorry.
I was just spending New Year's in Barcelona.
It was so cool. This has nothing to do with our subject, but I just want to tell everybody about New Year's Eve in Barcelona. It's so cool. A friend of mine from college lives there now with his husband, a beautiful Spaniard named David. So at midnight, right after midnight, you take 12 grapes, and like this clock strikes, dong, 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 the first 12 seconds after midnight, and each dong, you put a grape in your mouth. You don't put a dong in your mouth, you put a grape in your mouth. And
damn it.
You have to eat 12 grapes in 12 seconds. And it's supposed to be, if you don't do it, it's like bad luck or whatever. Well, I guess I'm going to have bad luck because I could only get 8. And I felt like I was going to choke after that. But
choke on the dong? No, the grapes.
The grapes. Come on. Keep it professional, Nathan. I only got 8, but my husband and my friend Peter and his husband both got all 12. Anyway, yeah, that's why we have been on a long break for Christmas and New Year's.
So we're going to get right back at it. And who are we talking about today?
Alexandra Feodorovna.
Yes, and she was the last Tsarina of Russia.
Russia. Can you do a Russian accent?
No, I can't.
I can't either. I just always want to go, vodka for breakfast. Have you ever watched...
That's Russian.
Yeah. Have you ever watched that show, Glow?
No, I haven't.
It's on Netflix about ladies wrestling. There's just this one stupid thing where Alison Brie is drunk and she's trying to be like a Russian character, and she goes, vodka for breakfast.
Oh, God.
So that's now what I think about.
So what are we drinking today? I made a Rasputin.
Yeah.
And because more on that later, but she was totally drinking the Kool-Aid.
Drinking the Rasputin Kool-Aid?
Yeah, the Rasputin Kool-Aid was all hers.
So tell us what's in this Rasputin Kool-Aid.
So this one is raspberry vodka. I think that's where they got the rasp. Yeah. Raspberry vodka with cranberry and grapefruit juice. So BT Dubs, me and Kitty both don't like grapefruit juice. And
okay, so now when I first took a sip of this, so we pre-gamed a little bit and just chatted. We haven't seen each other in a while, so we were catching up and talking about ghosts. And when I first took a sip, I was like, ugh. But now that I'm almost done with my first glass, it's much better.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little sweet, but grapefruit juice is a little dry. I just don't really
really. But
anyway, so Alex was born on June 6, 1872, and she was given the name Alex Victoria Louise Beatrix of Hesse and by the Rhine.
So let's just stick with Alex.
God, please,
I think we're just gonna. Her mother was Alice, a daughter of Queen Victoria of England. Maybe you've heard of her. And her father was Louis the Grand Duke of Hesse and by the Rhine.
So Hesse was like a duchy at this time, and it was what's part of Germany.
Yeah, it's like basically where Frankfurt is right now.
Yeah. And so she was the 6th of 7 children.
Her mother took kind of like an unconventional approach to motherhood for the time. And by that I mean she actually acted like their mother, like didn't just have them raised by nannies and
Yeah,
shit.
and her mother actually wrote to Queen Victoria about her and said she's sweet, merry little person, always laughing, and a dimple in one cheek.
She actually breastfed her kids, which royal women did not do.
Yeah, it was
Queen
uncommon.
Victoria hated it. Queen Victoria said, "I'm gonna name one of the cows in the field after you."
Oh,
Like because of the milk cows.
oh my God. That's awful.
I know.
But her family actually called Alex Sunshine.
Or Sunny, or whatever, because she was such a cheery little kid and, like, so happy all the time. Spoiler alert, that does not last for long.
Her name was Alex. It was kind of like a Germanized version of her mom's name,
Yeah,
Alice.
Yeah, I read somewhere that Alice was like, they murder the name Alice here, so I just called her Alex. Which was sweet. Her mother was like a super compassionate person.
Yeah, she was involved in like helping the poor and the sick, and she was a really like great person.
Yeah, a really good role model for little Alex, for
And I mean,
sure.
her childhood up at the beginning was very happy.
Yeah. So with her education, not as much is talked about her education as some of the other queens that we discussed who had like stellar educations.
Which is weird because
Yeah.
we're in the late 1800s.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not as documented. Maybe they just didn't consider it quite as important because she was the sixth child of a duke.
And she's a woman.
Yeah,
So
that her family was super Lutheran, so she did get a lot of her schooling did revolve around teachings of the Lutheran Church. Her mother did make sure that she was really involved in her children's education and made sure that they were really good with music and languages.
Yeah, that's where I kind of like connected with her because she was like music, piano. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of like how my family is. So it's like, I like that.
Yeah. She learned German, obviously, and she learned English. I think English was, like, her preferred language. That's how much her grandmother was involved in, like, her childhood and everything. She really, really strongly believed in the divine rights of kings, which means that she believed, okay, you are king, you're queen.
You're chosen by God.
Because God wants you to be. Maybe that's why people ended up having so many revolutions around this time. But
Spoiler alert.
more on that later. When she's 5 years old, tragedy strikes. Her little brother falls out of a window.
Sounds like Game of Thrones.
I know.
Anyway, her brother's name was Frederick.
And he dies of internal bleeding because he had hemophilia.
Hemophilia. What is hemophilia?
Well, it's a disease where your blood does not clot. So, like, any bump could cause internal bleeding.
And just bleed out.
And any cut could just a paper cut could, like, be a severe injury to you.
So what I read a lot from was Queen Victoria allegedly had this, like, weird genetic mutation.
Well, it's caused from
inbreeding.
thousands and thousands of years of inbreeding, or at least 1,000 years of inbreeding.
And so she just happened to get this inbred gene that caused hemophilia, and she passed it on to a bunch of the cousins. And
So at least 3 of her daughters were carriers, and one of them was because the hemophilia is carried by the females, but it doesn't actually, like, women
show in the
didn't
females.
suffer it. It only, like, manifests in boys.
yes.
So it became known as, like, the royal disease because all these royal kids, all these princes, are popping up with hemophilia.
Yeah, and so obviously royal disease because they're all inbred.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's marrying their fucking cousins.
And she, like, marries off all of her children, who then spread hemophilia to Germany, Russia, Spain. Like, she...
It's bad news bears.
Yeah.
It's really what it is. Tragedy strikes, part 2. When baby Alex was 6 years old, she, her mom, her brother, and sisters all contracted diphtheria.
So diphtheria is like this really horrible strain of bacteria that causes, like, your throat to, like...
Is that what you die of No, it was dysentery on the Oregon Trail. You have died of dysentery.
No, it's diphtheria.
Diphtheria.
So I'm one of those people that likes to look at the photos of like people that have diphtheria, so I can get an idea of like how they fucking died.
Well, I'm glad you
and
did.
Like their
I did not want to.
Their stomachs like bloat.
Gross.
And so it's just like this bacteria that gets a hold of you, and it was really sad because the kids all got sick and. Everyone urged Alice to just let the nurses and doctors
and she was like, "No, I need to take care of my own children." And
she wouldn't listen.
And Alex recalls like waking up in the middle of the night while she was sick and calling for her mother, and like no matter what time of day it was, what time in the middle of the night it was, her mom would come to take care of her.
And I remember reading something where they documented that she was like, she kissed her children.
And that's how she caught it.
And that's how she caught it, and that's how she got sick.
And so Maria, which was Alex's sister, and Alice herself died from not dysentery, from diphtheria.
So, interesting note, her mom died on the anniversary of her dad's death.
I know, that's so sad.
Oh my gosh, like whammy,
and she had been like
whammy,
like daddy's girl for sure. So like Alice's like last words were like, "Papa."
Dear Papa.
Aww. And I'm sure that was a major blow to Queen Victoria, because Queen Victoria was in mourning for her husband for the rest of her life.
And then her daughter died.
For her daughter to die, like, on the same day.
I think of Steel Magnolias whenever she goes through that monologue about Shelby dying.
I can run to Florida and back.
But my daughter can't.
This is the second time in this podcast where we have referenced that part of Steel Magnolias. There was another episode where we did it.
Really love Steel Magnolias. The first way to my heart is ice cream and Steel Magnolias.
Oh my goodness.
So anyway, life after Mama. Their father, he really did try to be like a
mother
dad.
And father, but it just didn't come. I mean, he loved his children, he doted on his children, but it just didn't come as naturally to him.
I think it's because he spoiled them too much. Like,
yeah.
I think he
tried to make up for, like, I'm sorry you lost your mother. Would you like 7 ponies? Let me get you 7 ponies. You know, like,
and I understand, like, he's traumatized as well, so he doesn't want to deal with it either.
Yeah, because he did love his wife. I think it was arranged marriage, but it was a loving one. You know, not all arranged marriages are sad and depressing. Theirs was pretty happy, I think.
But regardless of what anyone did, Alex was depressed. Yeah. Desperately depressed. Mm-hmm. And she just could not take it. And
later that year, she, like, suffered an injury. Like, her and her sisters were running, and she ran, like, right through a glass plate. And so her legs were jacked up for the rest of her life. And it took her a really long time to recover. And when she was, like, in her bed, she would, like, call for her mom whenever her legs hurt, but her mom's dead.
Somehow this makes me think of, like, our Catherine of Aragon episode when Henry has, like, that leg accident in the tournament, and then it, like, messes them up for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for her, it's like she just can't stand. She doesn't go crazy.
She couldn't
like
stand for, like, she didn't have, like, festering wounds. But, yeah, she couldn't stand for a long period of time. For the rest of her life,
she
her legs were jacked
bedridden for weeks. Weeks. And that is the fucking saddest thing ever.
I know. So let's kind of talk about, like, her personality is very shy. Yeah. Like, painfully shy, which comes off as snobby a lot of times in the rest of her life.
So Grandma Queen V would make her play the piano in front of all the guests. I love that.
And
I love it.
Well, because Alex was a very talented player. Like, she was a really great pianist. And so...
Sounded like you said penis.
I knew you were going to say that. I know you too well.
Couldn't help it.
No, she was really talented. And so Queen Vicky would want to, like, show that off to everybody, to, like, Alex's, like, embarrassment. She was like, oh,
and so
my
for
God.
a shy person with anxiety, getting out in front of people and forcing you to play isn't necessarily something that she would like to do.
So even though we don't know, like, a whole lot about her education, I did read that she was an excellent student, and, like,
her tutors loved her.
And she loved, like, I think she was only an excellent student because she loved getting praise from her tutors about her being such a good student.
And she was a little more than haughty.
Like, she was, like I said about the Divine Rights of Kings thing, she had it in her head, like, oh, I am better than everybody because I was born into a royal family because God picked me to be here.
It makes me, like, whenever I was researching Alex, I really was thinking, like, if you were to mix Catherine of Aragon with Marie Antoinette, like this really religious, super religious person, but with somebody who's like, oh, I'm fancy. Well, the common.
Well, no, Catherine of Aragon cared about.
But
the
what I'm
common
saying
people
is
a lot,
Marie
too.
Antoinette didn't mix.
I could see that. Okay. Write in. Tell us what you think. Tell us who you think. Well, let's actually get through the episode first. Queen Victoria wants Alex to eventually become Queen of England.
So Victoria really wanted Alex to marry the heir to the throne of England, her first cousin, Albert. And that would have been more hemophilia.
Albert was not a bad-looking guy.
No.
And I think that shows how much Vicky, like, adored Alex, that she wanted her to come live in England.
So I read that at that time, they actually started to get suspicions about inbreeding.
Vicky could not believe that Alex wasn't interested, and she thought, oh, she's just being coy, playing hard to get, being humble. But really,
Alex had her eyes on this hottie named Nicholas II.
I think Nicholas is very handsome.
Woo, child. He's got the hipster beard.
He does. He's got a very hipster beard.
With a really pretty blue eyes.
So,
and girl.
Picture it. St. Petersburg, 1884. Alex first meets Nicholas when her sister Elizabeth goes over to Russia to marry Nikki's uncle Sergei.
They were smitten.
I mean, she was 12, so she was smitten in the way that I was smitten with Taylor Hanson when I was 12.
Puppy love. Basically, a 10-year long distance relationship took place during that time.
Yeah, like they basically became pen pals for a decade.
They made it very clear to their families that they only had eyes for one another.
Though Nikki did have a mistress, a Russian ballerina named Matilda, and y'all, she was gorgeous.
Beautiful.
I don't even know how to say her last name, so I'm not going to try. So just, if you want to see pictures, Google Tsar Nicholas mistress, because he didn't have any after he married her, so I think that was his only mistress.
Was this the one that, his dad set him up?
His dad was like... Well, his dad knew that he was in love with Alex, and his dad did not want him marrying a German princess.
His dad wanted him marrying like a Russian...
No, his dad wanted him marrying a French princess.
Oh.
Because Hesse by the Rhine compared to France. And also,
that's interesting.
Russia and Germany had been at war previously. And so there were still a lot of people...
They didn't like each other.
They didn't like each other, and he was like, they're not going to accept a German... the public's not going to accept a German princess. And also Russia... It's interesting, at the Russian court at this time, people spoke French.
Yeah, it was all French.
So, yeah, that they would consider that the classiest language. So.
Parlez-vous français? Drumroll, please. She comes out when she's 16.
And
in
so
1888.
In 1888, she has her coming out, and no, it doesn't mean the same thing then.
Surprise, she's a lesbian, and she lived happily ever after.
She never married a king, and she lived happily ever after. Sadly, no. I wish she would have just been a lesbian and not married anybody. Her life would have been better.
Right.
But no, what that meant, coming out into society, basically means you're of marriageable age, and you start going to balls, and you start accepting, getting proposals and stuff like that.
Oh, so Nikki proposed, and they got married right away?
No. Her cousin Albert, heir to England, did propose, because I'm sure Grandma Vicky was like, do it now. And she said no, which was a scandal.
I know. It was a scandal. I remember reading it, and it was like, oh my gosh, Queen Victoria told you to do it.
And she was like, pass.
And I mean, honestly, Albert wasn't that bad looking either.
He was handsome.
He's no Nicholas II, though.
Yeah, he did. He ended up dying early, and so his brother George ended up becoming the king anyway, which is very interesting. Google George V of England and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. There's pictures of them standing side by side because they're also first cousins, but on the other side of the family, they look exactly alike. Exactly alike. Anyway.
Ooh, I couldn't handle that.
So let's talk about Nikki real quick.
Yeah, a little hot minute. So
they're called when you're the heir to the throne in Russia, you're the Tsarevich.
So a little brief history about, Russia is there's you have a family, the Romanovs, and the dad, Alexander the Third, is like super pro-Russia, the monarchy, and you have before him his grandpa was very...
Wasn't his grandpa the one that freed the serfs?
His grandpa freed the serfs and tried to be westernized and tried to be like to try to include the serfs and try to be
Which
more
happened
liberal.
first? I really don't know. I don't have this in the notes or anything. Which happened first, the freeing of the serfs or into slavery in America? I think into slavery in America. No.
Yeah, into slavery in America because it was like 18. Well, wait.
Or maybe it was about the same time. But anyway, these serfs had been...
I haven't looked that up.
These serfs, I just thought of it. These serfs have been like in indentured service since like the beginning of time.
We talked about it in Elizabeth Bathory.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this in the 12th century.
So there's Russian peasants who remember, hey, my grandpa was a serf. Like that's how recently they had been freed or whatever.
Yeah, and so Alexander the Third...
Nikki's dad, whatever.
Nikki's dad
was kind of, he was nowhere near as liberal and lovey-dovey, but he was a strict ruler. He was a commanding force to be reckoned with.
And the reason why is because Alexander II, Nikki's grandfather, ended up getting like blown up by a bomb.
Yeah, he was
in
assassinated.
A riot.
Yeah,
like he got blown up.
Yeah,
and they brought him home, and so obviously that's his granddad. So his dad went the exact opposite route that his father
and
did.
He was like,
and he tried to bring serfdom back.
He didn't.
He didn't, but he tried to.
He was a lot more of a hard ass.
He was a hard ass.
And
he was more conservative.
I do think whenever you're the king of like such a huge country, you do kind of have to be a hard ass. Whereas Nikki was sweet. Nikki was soft-hearted. Nikki wrote in his journal about how much he loved his mother.
And that's not really what you would think about the Tsar of Russia.
I know. And you know what? But that's going to make a great husband. But yeah, maybe not a great ruler of such like empire as Russia,
And I'm gonna reiterate it. He's fine as hell, girl.
He's very good looking.
Ooh. And so, like...
Their families were not into it, like, at all. We've already touched on that a little bit. Victoria says, why would you want to go to Russia? It's cold. It's unstable. The people there hate their rulers.
And she didn't like Alexander either.
Yeah.
Like, she's from Western Europe, so she likes that more modernized feel. And she didn't like Alexander. They didn't want the German-Russian thing. Yeah. And that really pissed him off.
In 1889, Alex goes over there to spend 6 weeks to, like, spend a season or whatever with her sister, Elizabeth. And her sister Elizabeth was hardcore pushing for this match. She wanted her sister with her, She wanted her sister to come over. Nikki falls so deeply in love with her.
It's so adorable reading about how they were just like...
He writes, my dream is someday to marry Alex H. I have loved her a long while and still deeper and stronger since 1889 when she spent 6 weeks in St. Petersburg.
My heart did a little pitter-patter.
But she made a horrible impression with the Russian people.
At the Capitol, she was, quote-unquote, badly dressed, clumsy, an awkward dancer, an atrocious French accent, a schoolgirl blush, too shy, too nervous, too arrogant.
Wah, wah.
Ooh, not great.
So she goes home after that, and shortly after, sadly, her dad dies. And she was heartbroken.
I mean, she's so little, and everybody's dying on her. Like, she doesn't have a mom.
She was 20 at this point.
But, I mean, her mom died when she was young, her brother, her sister, and then she's 20, and then her dad dies.
I know. So she has to focus. Her older brother, who I think is only older than her by like 2 or 3 years, now has to become the Grand Duke. So she has to focus on... She's basically playing queen to him as the king because she hosts all his dinners and, like... just getting him ready to get on his feet on his own. So marriage is out of her mind right now. She's focusing on home, making sure her brother gets off to a good start.
And she was playing the role of wife.
Yeah.
I mean...
receiving guests.
Banquets and parties.
Yeah.
Galas, or is it galas?
Oh, I say gala. Some people do say gala, though. I don't know.
Tomato.
Yeah, I don't know.
Cheerio.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll tell us in the comment section how much we suck at if we pronounce it wrong. So.
Is it gala or is it gala?
Whatever.
So years pass, and Nikki is like, okay, I really need to propose to her. Like,
and the families
come
are
on.
like, finally like, fine. You're like, this is the first thing you've ever actually fought for in your life. Because he's such a passive little pansy. I'm sorry, he is. And his parents are just like, whatever. And
So he went on this journey around the world and still came home saying, I love Alex. She's so totally the boss. Okay, leave out the totally.
And he still has his mistress, but he's like, I'm going to put her aside. He didn't love her like he loved Alex.
And Queen V, that's Queen Victoria.
Queen Vicky.
Queen V was over and she noted, no two people were ever more devoted than she or he are, and this is one consolation I have. For otherwise, the dangers and responsibilities fill me with anxiety.
Oh, which is kind of a scary thing. I can imagine if I got engaged and my grandma was like, the dangers fill me with anxiety, I might be like, whoa, what? She had never seen Alex so determined about anything in her life. So she was like,
they were both in love.
So, and also that shows, this determination that she shows that she's not this, shrieking violet that, everybody...
Exactly.
Is it shrieking? I said shrieking violet. That's not right. Shrinking. She's not a violet just going, ah!
Okay, so it's time to get engaged, girls and gals. So there's a wedding, and it takes place in Germany.
And it's Alex's brother
the new Grand Duke of Hesse by the Rhine. Oh.
He's marrying this chick named Victoria because, again, they're not very creative with names.
She was the Duke's first cousin because she was also the granddaughter of Queen Victoria, probably a carrier of hemophilia.
Whatever. And her mother was a Russian princess, so guess who was coming to the wedding?
Nikki! Oh my God, Nikki, licky. Oh
God. So, Nicholas proposes.
And Alex actually said no at first.
I know! What the fuck? Now, okay, so remember she was like a devout Lutheran, and she was going to have to convert to Russian Orthodox, which I didn't do any research on Russian Orthodox, but I believe it's very similar to Catholicism.
Yeah, super strict, super
has saints and shit like that. That what she had been taught her whole life were stupid and superstition and blah 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 blah.
So, leading him on much? She's totally leading him on.
This really annoys me because it's like, oh, you've been talking to this guy for 10 years. Is this the first time? This can't possibly be the first time you've thought about, hey, I'm going to have to switch religions if I marry him.
Duh.
So,
that's what you have to do.
One of my favorite podcasts that I've mentioned before on this show, The History Chicks, when they talk about this, they suggest that she had every intention of eventually marrying him. She just wanted a little bit of drama. She wanted a little bit of, look at me. Oh, I'm so distraught about what am I going to do about this?
And they had a long conversation on the day that he proposed that went on for 2 hours.
And she just wept, being, I can't do it.
The drama of it all.
Alex's sister, Elizabeth, who, she wasn't required to convert when she married Nikki's uncle, Sergei. But she did voluntarily. And also, I would love to do a short episode on Elizabeth one day. She had a very interesting life, and the Russian people loved her because she didn't have to convert, but she did. She was like, I'm going to live here. I may as well be the religion as these people.
I'll just go through the motions.
But yeah, so
keep your own religion.
That's what she told Alex. She was like, look, just do it, but keep your own religion in your heart. No one's going to know. No one knows what's in your heart, whatever. And so Alex says yes. Finally,
she held out
so
a long time.
They are engaged.
They go their separate ways to prep for the marriage.
Alex goes actually to England after the engagement. Goes to England after start learning Russian. Start learning about because Queen Victoria was like, well, if you're gonna have to convert, I want you to do it here. I can hire the best priest or whatever to come teach you. Then Nikki's dad, Tsar Alex, gets
Alexander III
gets really sick.
his health, like, just took this sudden, like, nosedive.
He'd already been slightly sick, and that's why they gave the okay for Nikki to propose. Because they were like, she's not our first choice, but I don't want to die and you not have, like, a queen lined up. Yeah. So go ahead and marry her.
Alex arrives, and the Tsar meets her in full regalia. Is it regalia?
No, it's regalia. Is it gala? Is it gala? Is it regala? Yeah.
Regalia.
Yeah. No, so he's like doesn't want to accept her into Russia, like, on his sickbed. So he gets all dressed up and meets her at the train station and everything, but, like, then immediately goes back to his sickbed. And she's only there 10 days before he dies.
What a way to be welcomed. Poor Alexandra. Welcome to Russia. You're... Oh, Daddy's dead.
And now it's time for a funeral. Nikki was confirmed as Tsar that night, and he said to his uncles, like, oh, I don't want to be Tsar. Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, what's going to happen to Russia? Which I just wonder, why hadn't people been prepping him from the day of his birth?
Come on. And then they scheduled the wedding 3 weeks later.
Only 3 weeks later. So the country's still in mourning.
And the Russian people, like, saw this as, like,
an omen.
Yeah, this is a bad omen. And this was like a slap in the face to Alexander III to be like, wedding right after you died.
So, or they were just like, well, because I guess the whole Russian population didn't necessarily know that he was already sick, so they viewed it as like, this German bitch comes over here and then our Tsar dies. Like, it's a bad omen.
It's a bad omen.
So the wedding took place 3 weeks later, November 26, 1894. Fun fact, it was Nikki's mom's birthday.
Yeah.
And so the reason they did that is because, so the country's in mourning, but on holidays like the Tsaritsa's birthday, the country gets to, like, lax their mourning a little bit and celebrate. So that's why they did it that day, because it was a day allowed for, like, some celebration.
I remember reading somewhere that someone quoted Alexandra as saying that she traded her white dress for a black one.
Well, she traded her black dress for a white one. Because she was in a black dress for mourning.
Sorry.
I knew what you meant. I was there. Yeah, she said I traded my black dress for a white dress, like her mourning dress to her wedding dress. She wrote to her sisters that the day felt more like a funeral than a wedding day.
This wedding was supposed to just forge together Germany, Britain, Russia, everything. No big deal. Like, we're just going to forge together the whole Asian European continent.
Yeah, that's cool. They get married, and her official name changes from Alex to Alexandra Feodorovna because of the church that she was converted to Orthodoxy in. So her sister was also Elizabeth Feodorovna. Oh. And, so because that was the church she converted
So the country was in mourning, and there was no reception, no honeymoon, nothing.
Yeah, they're otherwise, I think they did have, like, a small reception, but not, like, a huge state party, Otherwise, there would have been, like, parades and banquets all week. But sadly, not for them. However, I do want to touch on that Alex's dress was the fucking shit.
And the Romanov crown was like 9 fucking pounds.
Y'all, it's going to be on our cover art for this episode, but just Google her wedding dress. Like,
gorgeous.
It's so beautiful. She's got this choker on that oh my God, I love so much. I love the jewels. Yeah, that crown weighed 9 pounds. It was commissioned by Catherine the Great.
Dripping in jewels, eleganza.
Just like, her dress must have been so fucking heavy.
She wore this veil that was designed by her, her grandfather, Prince Albert, no big deal. And
her mother had worn it. All her aunts had worn this veil. It's actually very beautiful.
It's so, like, sentimental.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
And it's really, honestly, it didn't help with her unpopularity with Russian people at the time.
That crown gave her a fucking headache. And her legs, she can't stand for a long time. So when they're, like, receiving people after the wedding that are congratulating them, everyone noted that she looked so pissed off and, like, didn't look excited or happy. Yeah, I'm sure she was miserable. Her legs hurt, her head hurt. She was wearing, like, 50 pounds of jewels, and she wasn't, she didn't like being the center of attention.
And the funny thing is that the court coronation didn't take place until like a year and a half later on May 14th of 1896.
I understand, like, they got married in November. They probably didn't want to do the coronation. Well, they didn't want to do the
coronation after the dad died.
Yeah, and also they didn't want to do it in the winter because I don't know if you know this about Russia. It's cold. It's very cold. Yeah, so the coronation takes place after mourning's over. So about a year and a half later,
and the thousands of Russians like show up to the event. This is the beginning of the end.
So they had banquets in every major city throughout the country. You know, they were going to go on progress and hit, like, all these major cities.
And we've talked about it before in previous episodes where when you throw a coronation, you go to the city and you throw a party and it's free
Everybody
food.
gets free shit. It's basically like a party bag.
It's like Oprah showing up and be like, you get food and you get food. And
everybody doesn't starve today. So they were supposed to get
a bread roll, a pretzel, sausage, and a commemorative cup. I wish it was monogrammed with their initials on it.
It might have been. I don't know what the commemorative cup looks like. I should have looked that up.
Bougie bitch.
But yeah, and then rumors started to spread that there was going to be a gold coin in the cup.
Oh, Lord. You know,
and so 500,000 people show up to Kudinka. I think I'm saying that right. Kudinka Field, which is like this big field in Moscow, which was going to be the location of the big banquet in Moscow.
I'm going to say Kodinka to cover our bases.
Kodinka?
I don't know.
Kodinka. Adinka.
Right.
Dinka Field. So it was about 4 days after the coronation took place.
And it's a tragedy.
So by 6 a.m. that day, 500,000 people had gathered there because they want their shit. But a lot of people had stayed up all night. They hadn't even gone to bed, so they just stayed up all night.
They hungry.
And they also had been staying up drinking all night.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they were extra hangry.
And belligerent.
And the Russian crowds just got super pissed because they're belligerent and started just, like, trampling.
Like, I guess somebody whispered in the crowd, like, oh, the pretzels are ready. And so everybody, starts running and rushing. And 1,389 people were trampled to death. That is my... Like, when I was reading about how they died, like, suffocating in ditches or whatever, that is, like, my worst nightmare way to die. Like, because I'm claustrophobic. You have claustrophobic issues also.
Too.
Could you imagine just being like under a bunch of bodies in a ditch and can't get out, and that's how you die? Exactly. That's exactly how I feel.
And so there were...
And 1,300 other people were injured.
So there were like 1,800 police on standby.
But for a crowd of 500,000 people, what does that do? That's a drop in the bucket, you know?
Nothing. Like, you're screwed. Again, many people saw this as a bad omen.
Yeah, like this German woman came over, and then the king dies, and then these people all die, and... Yeah, it was not good for them.
And then Nicholas got his nickname, Bloody Nicholas, for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Maybe him and Bloody Mary should
get together
in the afterlife.
There needs to be a Bloody Nicholas cocktail.
Bloody together.
Bloody. What would be in a Bloody Nicholas? Maybe. Well, there's already vodka in a Bloody Mary, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll take this offline. We'll discuss it later.
So there was a ball that night to be hosted by the French ambassador.
And Alex and Nikki were like, we can't go to this.
But Nikki's family, who was, actually really running the show, and as we mentioned, Nicholas isn't the most commanding type of guy.
They were like, you have to go to this ball. You can't snub the French ambassador. Which I'm like, why hasn't the French ambassador already canceled his party anyway?
Right.
It would be like...
Dad died. People were trampled.
It would have been like if after Hurricane Katrina, Bush had been like...
Party!
Whatever. Having a party. Have fun.
Bad move, bro. Bad move.
So they went to this party. Alex was fucked either way. The common people... said that she was a bad omen and that she caused this trampling, but if she would have not gone to this party, the society people would have been like, oh, well, she's so snobby and stuck up anyway, she couldn't be bothered to make it. So she's fucked either way.
Yeah.
The British ambassador to Russia was at this party, and he wrote to Queen Vicky, the Empress appeared in great distress, her eyes reddened by tears the entire night. While at the ball.
So sad.
I know.
This pissed the Russian people off, too. It seemed like she was being heartless and callous.
But they even went
wasn't...
and visited the people in the hospitals, and they gave 1,000. Is it rubles? Was their money at the time?
Yeah.
They gave 1,000 rubles to like anybody that lost a family member in the tragedy. But still, I mean, there was nothing they could have done.
Yeah, it just seems like at this point that there's nothing that you could do
Make
win
it better.
over the Russians.
They're gonna hate her.
Like, there's no matter what you do, they're gonna hate her no matter what. Because
she could pull rainbows and sunshine out of her ass and make it always nice in Russia, and people are still gonna be like, yeah, but why didn't she pull Skittles out her ass too? I like Skittles, you know, like... It seems like her marriage to Nicholas got off to a rocky start, but their relationship was tight. They were so fucking in love with each other.
They were. Everything that I read
They
was
were kind of oblivious to everything else.
Head over heels, like, I think, puppy love.
He didn't have any mistresses. She was the most devoted wife. I know now when you're like, he didn't have any mistresses. It's like, okay, good. But back then, you know,
they had tons.
Yeah, and the fact that, no, they married for love and they were committed to each other.
And to add to this, Alex had 4 daughters from 1895 to 1901. So in like 6 years, 4 daughters.
Bam, 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 bam.
And the thing is this is what makes me think of Catherine of Aragon again, is that no sons.
Yeah.
No.
Well, even though Catherine of Aragon had a son on the first try, he just died after 10 weeks or whatever.
Surviving, male heirs.
And so everybody's like, this German bitch comes here, kills our czar, tramples all our people, and can't even give us a baby
boy.
Whatever. But let's talk about the 4 girls that were born, because...
everybody knows them. They're from...
Alex loved her daughter, and Nicholas was... Oh, I bet he was such a good dad. Everything I read was just like, he obsessed over his daughters. He spoiled the shit out of them. I could just imagine him being just the sweetest dad. You know what I mean? So Olga came first. She was born a year after the wedding in 1895. Olga was a fucking adorable kid. Go to her Facebook page, Olga Romanov. Not her Facebook page? Wikipedia page. She does not have a Facebook. Let me drink some more of this Rasputin.
You drinking the juice.
No, her Wikipedia page, they show pictures of her from when she's a toddler. She is the prettiest little baby.
And she was the shy one.
Yeah, and
she was the meek one.
Alex actually said, because she didn't realize she was going to have nothing but daughters after this, after Olga was born, she was like, I'm actually happy it's a girl, because we don't have to share this baby with Russia. Because if it had been a boy, it would have been property of the state. But they're like, she was happy their first one was a girl, because they got to be a cute little family for a while.
So Tatiana was next, born in 1897. She was the one that said, she was the spitting image of her mother.
Yeah.
She was the one that looked just like her.
She was the most serious of them, which is a lot, Alex was a very serious figure.
And later in life, she was the Paris Hilton of the family, the one that was the public figure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I like that, the Paris Hilton of the family. Maria was born in 1899. Maria was, quote unquote, the pretty one.
What a bitch.
Was very romantic. She was obsessed with romance novels and poetry. And Alex was like, okay, this is the one that's going to be a good wife or whatever, you know, someone to marry off into a powerful family.
And then the one that everybody knows about, Anastasia,
was born in 1901.
So I do have a confession to make. Yeah. I have never seen Anastasia before.
The cartoon?
Never seen it before we did this.
I loved it when I was a kid. I don't know how many times I saw it when I was a kid. And because of that movie, I thought that the Romanovs died in a fire until 2014.
Fake news.
Until 2014, I thought that they had all died in a tragic fire.
Have you been reading CNN? Fake news.
CNN says that they died in a fire in 1902.
You totally have to put in the thing that Anastasia, I never saw that. Anyway.
Yeah. Never saw it. Nathan never saw it, so he has no idea what I'm talking about. So in case you hadn't gathered from context clues, in the cartoon, the Romanovs all die in a fire. Because maybe, shot in the head was not good for children.
So like you were saying.
And so in 1902, she has a phantom pregnancy, which we've discussed phantom pregnancies, I think only in the Catherine of Aragon episode. Where it's just
another reason why
you're just so stressed about not having a baby that you like your body convinces yourself that you're pregnant. Yeah, it's just like you want it so bad. Isn't it so crazy that the brain can affect the body like that?
But finally,
1904,
a boy comes, and it's
coming out.
I want the world
to boy. I am the Tsarevich. Oh.
10 years after their wedding, they finally.
Y'all, this
Katie,
vodka is
stop.
fun. Vodka for breakfast.
Katie, stop.
I'm sorry. They name him Alexi.
The couple was overjoyed that this happened, and everyone in the country was like, whew, sheesh, finally, we have a boy.
Finally. And the couple was like through the roof, but when he's about like 2 or 3 months old, he one day just starts bleeding from his belly button for no reason. And they realize, oh, fuck, he has hemophilia. So Alex's whole life becomes devoted to making sure that Alexei survives.
Oh, God. And here enters our good man, Rasputin. I'm going to pour a glass for this skanky ass
Girl, top me off. That is a full, like, y'all, he filled his glass to the brim. Don't fill me to the brim because I will spill it.
So she meets this dude that
enter stage left, Rasputin.
He
the
has
creepiest
this, like,
looking motherfucker ever.
Right? He has like this, allegedly, he has like this good Jesus juju, like that he just has a direct connection to Jesus.
Me and the J-Man are tight.
And to be honest with you, I think Rasputin was a little bit of a whack job.
A bit. A little bit? Is that what we're going to say? So, understatement of the year. I know it's been a short year.
Right. So let's meet Rasputin. He was
quote unquote
holy man, quote unquote healer. This is the time in even in,
American history.
World. Yeah.
Like, everybody was really into mysticism. Like, if you look at Mary Todd Lincoln, which was just like 30 years before this or something, she was really, like, the whole world was really into mysticism.
Yeah, and there was this specific sect of the mysticism that was like the Callisti sect, and it was this whole cultish faith healing. And I read some stuff where it was like, you indulge in your sins for one moment so that you don't sin anymore.
So like a cheat day?
Yeah, exactly.
Like a cheat day for
that's
sins?
where the whole like orgies and like they had all this like orgies and drinking.
I think I've read that it's
like,
been like disputed though that he was really into like orgies and stuff. That was just like the Russian public hated him so much.
And that's the thing.
That's the
like,
thing they spread.
Yeah, he was a negative connotation to sex, basically.
Yeah. Oh, he's so scary looking.
He's creepy.
Anyway, Alex enlists Rasputin because, like they don't know what to do about this hemophilia and stuff.
So Alex enlists Rasputin to pray for her son to make him better because he's this reputable healer that has done great things for people.
And so she becomes like obsessed with him and his teachings. And she gave him like incredible access to like the running of the government, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he had a first class ticket to Russian.
Yeah, and so
monarchy.
Like the ruling class, like the other people in like the monarchy, fucking hated him because who is this farmer who suddenly, and then the working class hated him because they were like, oh shit, this guy is cray.
So like I said this to you like before this, like I feel like he's like the Warren Jeffs of Russia. Warren Jeffs is like a cult leader.
Oh, is
like,
he that? Wait, is he the
he's
guy
the
from
one
Houston that has like the big.
No.
I know.
That's Joel Osteen.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know who
Warren
Warren Jeffs
Jeffs was the one that had like. He had like a bunch of wives, and they were all like underage.
Oh, that was also in Texas, though, wasn't it?
Yes,
and it was Warren,
yeah.
and then like they were like that, where all the women dressed like in like colonial clothes or whatever,
exactly.
and he had like a bunch of 14-year-old
that
wives or something.
Reminds me of Rasputin. Is like he's like super religious, cult-like kind of
Okay,
sorta. And so.
Anyway.
Alex became obsessed with his teachings. Like, he prayed for her son, and then he got better.
That's kind of the crazy thing, is that, she would, anytime that Alexei got really sick, she'd be like, Rasputin, pray for him, and then Alexei would get better a couple of days later.
It was weird.
The one thing I did read years ago, I couldn't re-find it in the study. Years ago, I read about, because, hemophilia is like, you bleed easily. And aspirin, which was like a brand new medicine then, prevents blood clotting and stuff like that. So, because like for instance, my dad has like had stents in his legs because his blood clotted too much.
Yeah.
And so they tell him to take aspirin every day. And so the doctors...
It thinned it out.
Yeah. And so the doctors were giving the little boy aspirin for his aches and pains. And Rasputin was like, tell the doctors not to give him anything.
I have not heard that.
And so I don't know if he knew, because like I don't think back then they knew that about aspirin, that it was like effective blood clotting.
I was sitting there reading and being like, why did it work? And now that makes sense, because everything I was reading, they were like, we don't know how it worked.
So let's get back to Alex, and she's just kind of like erratic at this point. She would like isolate herself for like days just to pray for Alexei.
She's the beginning of the end of the Romanov family. Spoiler alert.
Oh, the whole story is the beginning of the end. And
there were rumors that Alex and Rasputin boned.
And which I don't believe.
I don't believe it at all.
Hot second.
Okay, so
first of all, she's so haughty, and she thinks, "Oh, God has put me in this place." She's not going to sleep with a farmer, you know.
Here's the defense is about to present its case. Step one: Alex is hot as fuck, and
you mean Nikki is? Oh no, you mean Alex? You think Alex is hot as fuck?
Step two: Nikki is hot as fuck.
So why is she gonna fuck Rasputin, who looks like a demon?
The homeless guy on the side of the road, like he literally
looks like a crackhead.
Like, I don't want no hobo. I don't want no hobo. A hobo's nobody get low from me.
Anyway, long story short, she's obsessed with Rasputin, grasping at straws, and that is the straw that she like just clings onto. That Rasputin's gonna save her baby boy.
And the thing is that Nicholas keeps trying to be like, nah, maybe he doesn't know that much.
Nicholas isn't that into it, but it's the only thing making his wife feel peaceful, and he loves her so much. I think he just like went along with it. He didn't necessarily believe in it, but he was like, this makes my wife feel better, so I'm just gonna roll with this creepy homeless guy sleeping in the palace, you know? While this is all happening, Russia is going to shit. Absolutely. Alex is too wrapped up in her family. She's too wrapped up in her family to realize that the country is changing, and like the outlook on the imperial family is changing.
And Nikki would ask for her advice a lot of times.
And her advice was always, who the fuck cares what the common people think? God has chosen you to be the ruler. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Russia and Japan went to war over this little bitty piece of Korea that they both said that they had claim on.
It's mine.
We won't go into huge detail, but basically it was these two huge Eastern powers fighting.
Japan whooped their ass.
And, well, because Nikki entered it thinking, of course we're going to beat Japan. They're this little bitty country. We're this big fucking country. And yeah, Japan won. And Teddy Roosevelt had to step in to mediate a peace. Japan was kicking their ass, and Nikki stuck out in the war out of pride and nothing else.
And guess what happened? This left Russia poor AF.
They were poor and embarrassed. Like, everybody was so embarrassed about this.
I just lost to this little tiny island over yonder.
And so the Russian people start, like, protesting shit. And this really is the actual beginning of the Russian Revolution, in my opinion. Would you agree?
Yes.
So, now, we're going to talk about Bloody Sunday.
Bloody Sunday.
Now, nothing we're about to say, like, in any way, was, like, the fault of Alex or Nicholas.
But the people already hated him, so bad news bears, y'all.
Yeah. Well, I say it's not their fault. Anyway, let's get into it and then we'll discuss. So, on January 22nd, 1905, a group of peaceful, unarmed, and mostly religious-based marched on St. Petersburg to present a contract to the Tsar for, like, better working conditions.
There were about 3,000 to 10,000.
It's a pretty big gap, but somewhere in between there. There was about 3,000 to 10,000 people marching. There were elderly, women, children. It was a real representative of Russia's working class.
So they're marching on St. Petersburg, which is the Tsar's home, and they didn't know that homeboy was going to be home that day.
No, him and his family weren't home. It was called the Winter Palace, is what they were marching to, and they weren't home. But the Tsar's council told him before he, like, went to leave, like, hey, this march is happening. Like, it wasn't like a surprise march. And Nicholas was like, well, I've already got plans to go over here. And after it, Nicholas' sister actually wrote to him being like, you knew they were coming. You should have stayed. And he was like, but I already had plans to go hunting over in Moscow or what, like something else.
Some bro shit.
So he could have stayed, but he had no idea what was going to happen. It was not his fault. But very long story short, they were shot at, and 100 were killed, and hundreds were wounded. And riots fucking ensued, because these were unarmed, peaceful religious people who were just coming to talk to their Tsar. And it's so sad, because while they were marching, they were even saying, like, long live the Tsar, long live Russia.
And also I read that they were saying, no war, more food.
Yeah.
Like, they're just saying, stop fighting war, give us food.
And let's be peaceful, and let's come to... And they get shot at.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. So and after that, people were saying, like, we no longer have a Tsar.
I feel like
the Tsar doesn't care about us.
Think the January 2017 Women's March... Think that, but gone really bad.
Like if the women had all been shot at.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, think that. Like, and it just pissed everybody off.
So, like...
Especially some dude named Vladimir Lenin.
Heard of him much?
No.
So, huge, sweeping summary of the revolution building up to World War I. Lots of workers on strike and protesting. Lots of mad hate for the imperial family.
Yeah. Lots of Nikki going out hunting and feeling sad and depressed and helpless.
Lots of Alex praying and stressing and Rasputining. It's a verb.
Drink the juice, Shelby. Nikki forms this thing called the Duma.
It's like Congress, basically.
Yes, and there's...
It's supposed to be like elected officials.
There's a few Dumas that he creates along the time. But...
up to this point, he'd been a total monarch, which means, like... It means exactly what it sounds like it means.
Yeah,
like
aristocracy, like... It's what we talked about Alexandra with being like, you are anointed by God.
Yeah, and so, like, up to this point, he'd be a total monarch, and so he forms this Congress, this Duma, and trying to show the people, like, look, I'm willing to work with you. Like, I'm gonna let you elect some officials. But, like, it was a name only. Like, in practice, they didn't really do anything.
No, it was just symbolic. But this obviously pissed Alexandra off.
It pissed her so off because she was like...
Like I said, she was sitting there saying, King of Kings, you're
king
anointed.
Because God said so. Why are you sharing it with these fucking peasants? Which kind of makes me feel a little like, come on, Alex, we're trying to do a nice episode about you. Quit being a bitch.
Right? And then all the citizens, get pissed off, annoyed at her. Yeah. Because she's not taking... I mean, the Tsar's not taking the Duma seriously. Nobody's, like, really taking this as,
And-
like, we're trying to change
So the
things.
Russian people, they're worried about what's going on. Because, one, they've kept Alexei's disease very close to, the vest. So everyone's like, why don't we ever see the Tsarevich? What's wrong with the Tsarevich?
Also...
Who's this crazy homeless guy running
Yeah,
around?
also,
what?
who's this Rasputin dude anyway?
And then World War I starts. Russia enters World War I in 1914. Nicholas...
He's kind of a coward.
He didn't tell his wife that they were entering World War I, which was their main foe was Germany. So her brother and her husband were going to be fighting each other.
So I read that what happened with Nicholas is that he went down to their little special prayer house that they had commissioned, and he went down there and he, quote unquote, heard the voice of God say, you need to step up and be a man and be the Tsar of Russia. And he didn't tell his wife. He should have communicated with his girl.
And so she's all like, she storms into his study one day when she hears about them entering World War I, is basically like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't tell me about this. What the hell?
And they're going to war with Germany, so obviously, the Russian people are like, oh, she's in with the Germans.
Everyone decides that she's a
German spy. She's a German spy.
Yeah. And so Nicholas appoints himself head of the army. Why? No one asked for that. He has no military training. His people don't particularly have love for him, but in his brain, he's thinking, well, if I do this, everyone's going to see how much I care. Interesting note, Rasputin did prophesize that if Russia joined the war, it would be the end of the monarchy forever.
Spoiler alert.
Oh, maybe Rasputin knew something about... Alex is left in charge. He leaves Alex as, run the country while I'm gone. I don't think Alex was prepared for this responsibility or the backlash it would cause.
Well, obviously, you leave a woman in charge in this time.
And she relied heavily on Rasputin while he was gone. And, bitch had no idea what she was doing, which is so sad because we've had so many queens that we've talked about that were wonderful regents.
She sucked at being a regent.
She sucked at it so bad. She would appoint somebody and then the next day be like, no, never mind. I meant this guy. No, never mind. I meant this guy.
She had no idea what she was doing. I read a lot was Rasputin, trying to push her to fire this guy and hire this guy and fire this guy this guy.
She was not raised in a way to think for instance, we keep comparing her to Catherine of Aragon. And Catherine of Aragon had been regent while Henry VIII was out of the country.
But she was a good regent.
And she was good because of the way she was raised.
Yeah.
Yes, she was not raised to be a ruler. She was raised to be the wife of a ruler. But she knew how state business was ran. But Alex was not raised that way,
but that's what I'm saying with, it's Catherine of Aragon mixed with
Marie Antoinette. Oh, and in this instance, yeah, absolutely. Anyway,
all of her royal family throughout Europe was, writing her letters being like, you gotta dump this Rasputin bitch and get him the hell out of here.
We don't know this Rasputin. We don't like him. Everybody's very suspicious. You need to let him go. And she was like, new phone, who dis? One nice thing. One nice thing that she did, which I feel like she was trying to emulate her mother, was she set up her and her daughters to be nurses for soldiers injured during World War I.
Oh, wow.
And so, they would go and, care for the sick and everything, but to very mixed reviews because they weren't loved by the public. So a lot of there were soldiers who were like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, this is so nice. But then there were soldiers that were like,
pissed off.
They were like, you're 15. You're not a trained nurse. Get the fuck out of here. We don't want...
Why are you here?
Exactly.
I'm annoyed by you. Shut up.
So World War I, if you don't know anything about World War I, quick summary.
Fucked up Russia.
So the moral of the story is Russia was completely broke. Russia was the first major power to really drop out of World War I before the world ended.
Germany whooped their ass.
So Germany did whoop their ass, which they were not expecting. They were expecting more troops from France to come help them, but France was dealing with their own. France was trying to protect the Western Front, And they thought Russia had the Eastern Front, and Russia thought they were going to get support for the Eastern Front. And it was a whole... So Russia had to drop out. And it was just...
Bad situation.
It was a bad situation.
The people of Russia...
They're protesting. They're looting. They're starving, so of course they're looting, you know?
They're ready to tear everything up. And
all the farmers had been called to arms, so there's nobody... producing bread. There's nobody, making food.
And why didn't Alex take their advice?
Why didn't Alex take their advice? She should have dumped Rasputin. So, that brings us to Rasputin's assassination. Around the same time that everything's going to shit... Oh, we forgot to mention... So there was an army that was sent out to stop all the looting and shit. And then the army ended up joining the side of the looters. It was mutiny.
Oh, yeah.
Which is exactly what her family had been like, this is what's going to happen.
They basically persuaded the royal guard, I guess you would say.
To join our side. They're like, are you hungry? And they're like, yes, we are also quite hungry. And they're like, join us and loot. And then the royal guard was like, you know what? Yeah, let's just... Cool. Tight. And so anyway, Rasputin's assassination. Nicholas's nephew decided to murder Rasputin. So, first of all, they gave him some cake that had poison in it.
Let them eat cake.
And it didn't affect him. At first he, denied the cake, and then he ate it, and he was like, whatever.
I feel like he...
And he was like... He was fine.
Nobody...
When they realized, oh shit, this isn't affecting him, they gave him some wine. He had 3 glasses of wine, which was also poisoned.
Still, nothing.
So, then they shot him in the chest. And he survived?
How the fuck did he survive?
They shot him in the chest, and they just assumed he was dead. So they, left to go, get a driver so that they could go bury him somewhere or whatever. And when they came back upstairs, he, shot up and attacked them.
He's got Jesus juju written all over him,
So he runs into the courtyard of their palace or whatever, and he's shot, a bunch more times, and so he finally drops dead.
And I read that they, threw him in a river.
So they wrapped him up in a blanket and threw him in a river. And when people found him, they suspect that he tried to, break free of the blanket. So his official cause of death is drowning. So he survived 2 poisonings, maybe 2 shootings, and then drowned to death.
Wow.
Right?
So, nevertheless, he persisted.
We need to make t-shirts! Rasputin assassination. Nevertheless, he persisted.
So Alexandra was distraught.
Broken up.
And she...
So sad.
She begged Nicholas to come home, and he did.
He did, because he... loved her so much. And,
we don't know much about how exactly Nicholas felt at the loss of Rasputin, but we do know that none of the assassins were punished.
Well, it was his nephew.
Yeah.
You know? And, but Rasputin had made a prophecy that said, if I'm murdered by the aristocracy will all die.
Huh.
And, guess what happened? Let's move on. Yeah. People all over the country are just looting for food and screaming, down with the German woman, down with the war, down with the Tsar.
And they're all shook for real.
Yeah, it's not good. The Duma came to the Tsar and demanded he abdicate, soon after Rasputin's death. And so on March 1917, the Tsar Nicholas abdicated the throne, both on his behalf and the behalf of his son, Alexei.
Nicholas II.
Dynasty of over 300 years. Gone like that.
Oh, the Romanovs.
The family was immediately put under house arrest. But, in their winter palace. And at first they were treated very well. Yeah, the revolutionaries, they just legitimately wanted these people off their hands. So they wrote to the King of England, who was both Nikki and Alex's first cousin. They wrote to him and being so they were can you take the Tsarina, Alex, and their children off our hands? They were going to keep Nicholas in their custody, but can you take the wife and children off our hands. And George V said no, because they were an unpopular figure, and he thought if I take them, it will start like revolution here. And I wish I could end this story with
they all went to England.
Why couldn't he take them? Why couldn't he take them and just hide them in like a house in Scotland or something that no one would ever know they were there?
So what I'm going to say is the reason that he couldn't is because I feel like George V taking in the Tsar of Russia would have been like...
The Tsar's family, not the Tsar, though.
Yeah,
but
still he's keeping the family alive. So it would be this power move of monarchy forever.
What I'm trying to get at is I feel like he could have done it in secret. He could have, like, secretly taken in Alex and her kids and put them in some cottage in Scotland and no one would ever know.
Get thee to a nunnery.
But he said no, but I also don't think he knew.
I think you're right.
I think he did not foresee.
He could have gotten over it.
He had no idea what was coming next. Nobody had any idea what was coming next.
And the revolutionaries were seeing the state that Alex was in, and they knew it was unlikely that...
Alexei. You mean Alexei.
Oh, the little boy.
So they saw he was so sick that he couldn't be moved from palace to palace because he had hemophilia. Like, every time he, like, bumped his shoulder, it was like... Yeah. For a while, it was just like, what do we do with them? What do we do with them?
So they tried to send them to England.
Wouldn't take them.
They tried to send them to France.
Wouldn't take them.
They were about to ask Alex's homeland after the war.
But, like, after the war with Germany, it just seemed like, let's not even ask the Germans to take them. That sounds like...
Enter Siberia.
Yeah, so they took them to Siberia.
Let's put you in the freezing cold.
So the country was at civil war. After about 2 or 3 months after the abdication, the country was at civil war. And there was the red team and the white team, basically. And the reds were the Bolsheviks.
Ooh.
And the whites were the Czechoslovaks, I think is how you say it. And they were a little bit... They were like, hey, maybe let's not imprison the royal family. Let's find somewhere else to put them.
And the Bolsheviks got power, which was
very, very bad news for our friends, the Romanovs.
Oh.
So they were moved again, and this time it was not a palace. And they were not treated nicely. Their imprisoners referred to them as Nicholas the Blood Drinker and that German bitch.
Wow. That makes me sad.
So once they arrive to their final prison...
It was a real prison.
All of their items were confiscated. Like, their bags, their books, they weren't allowed to even, like, get the newspaper. Like,
This just starts getting me
So prior to
emotional.
them being moved, because Mom and Dad and Olga... were moved about 6 weeks before everybody else was moved because Alexei was too sick to move them. Alex told the daughters, look, in case we need to escape and we need money, sew all your jewels into your corset.
So that they would be able to run out and have money.
So they sewed all their jewels into the corset.
They would be separated, obviously, for days on end, but she would still be able to get the money. And they were only... Exactly. They were actually only allowed an hour each day.
Once the whole family made it over there, they had such strict rules. Like, they were only allowed an hour outside each day, like you just said.
Baby boy Alexei
was sick. Like, they moved him, and he almost died during them moving him to Siberia. He was so sick. And Alexandra got sick, too, and had to be confined to a wheelchair.
Okay, so remember that leg injury from childhood? That really came back to haunt her, and she was confined to a wheelchair.
It's so sad.
I can feel that.
She took to reading the Bible all day, every day. Like, even when everybody else went outside for their hour of outside activity, she would just stay inside and read the Bible.
Pious. Ugh. Love it. Anyway, unknown to the imperial family, there were forces... The Bolsheviks, wanting to show... No,
the whites, the Chokovich, or whatever, the Chekovich, whatever, the whites. So, I'm sorry, guys. This is a long episode, and we're, like, on drink 4. The white team was, like, marching on their prison, and they wanted to save them.
So, July 16th, 1918, the white forces are moving in on the Bolsheviks.
When I was studying this, I literally cried. It is the saddest thing.
I know.
July 16th, 1918. Day passes normal. The family, went on their outing. They stayed up playing card games until 10 o'clock. They went to bed in the middle of the night. Their captors woke them up.
Bolsheviks.
Whatever.
The Bolshevik bitches.
The bitches woke them up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so Nikki's like, what is this? What is this? And they're like, the whites are moving in and they want proof that you're still alive. So we're going to take a family portrait.
So they gather to take family picture, selfie.
The 4 daughters, the gravely sick son, the 2 parents, and a couple of servants entered a room and sat down for their portrait. And the leader of the men said, your relations have tried to save you and failed. We must now shoot you.
Oh my God, I really wish they would escape.
I wish I so bad. Wish I could say that they escaped this. And, you know what? If you want to read the details of the execution, you can. They're online. Do you agree that I don't want to go into the details. Besides, we'll give you a little bit of details, but I don't want to go into every single gruesome detail. It makes me too sad.
I'll try to give a quick rundown, which is...
Alexandra was shot in the head immediately and died right away.
And the kids were not killed immediately.
Because they had all their jewels in their corset. They accidentally made them... I'm sorry. They accidentally made themselves... these bulletproof vests. These poor little girls that had never done anything in their life.
Essentially, they had a bulletproof vest on, and it didn't kill them. The shots didn't kill them. Alex
and Alexi were all killed, immediately.
Instant.
But the 4 daughters... So, the gunmen... Half of the gunmen were drunk.
I remember this story. This is so horrible, guys.
35 minutes to kill everybody.
They were not.
There were bayonets involved.
Yeah,
there were bayonets involved.
They were not shot.
Anyway,
it was not instant.
I don't want to talk about it anymore. The whole family.
We're getting emotional. Talk amongst yourselves.
I am. I'm feeling very verklempt.
How Rhode Island is neither a road nor an island.
Discuss. But anyway, so the whole family died, and
so sad.
It's sadder than Marie Antoinette's ending, I think.
Yeah, it is. It's like a family picture, but
So let's talk about her legacy. In 1981, Alex and Nicholas were canonized and made martyrs. Saints in the Russian Orthodoxy Church. In the 90s, their remains were found because the people that killed them weren't nice to their remains, so it took a long time to find them.
And there was the rumor that Anastasia and the girls were not
news.
There, but it's fake news.
100% fake news.
They found their bones next to, not next to, but close by the mother and father.
So something I find incredibly interesting. I feel like if they hadn't been a royal family, they would have been a family of photographers. They love taking pictures of themselves out and about. It is so easy on the internet to find pictures of them on their family outings.
Yeah, no, it is.
And you know what? They were a beautiful family.
So you know what, Katie?
Let's drink to this beautiful family.
Beautiful. Cheers, bitches.
Cheers, bitches, to Alexandra. We love you. So, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
If there's something you want to hear, reach out to us.
Find us on Twitters, Queens. Twitters?
Twitters.
I say Twitters?
There's more than one Twitter. Pick your Twitter to find us on.
Find us on Twitter, Queens_podcast.
You can email us at queenshistorypodcast@gmail.com.
And hey, while you're there, leave a review.
On iTunes, leave us a review, yeah. Follow us on Facebook at Queens Podcast. Bye, everybody.
Love you guys.
Love you.